Okay, hi again. I will briefly talk to you about one project, a project where we had much less stories than all the projects that you heard until now. It was an amazing collaboration with Wanke and Fifth Architect, who should be somewhere here. It is a project that started in an amazing way. The client called us, and in one day we got an agreement to work on the project. That is already extremely unusual for us, that the contract discussions are so short. The client knew exactly what he wanted. So it's the same owner as the place here. The architect had a very clear idea of his project. The project was simple, and the idea was just to work on a simple project. And why do I show this project today? Because I feel that a lot of projects think that to be interesting, they must be very special. But also simple projects can also be very nice, can be beautiful, and can be iconic somehow. So this is the Girong Tower. It's a project. These nice views are maybe not so visible. It's not a very high-rise building, 160 meters high. It's a project. Maybe you can see it here. It has a zigzag facade. The zigzag facade is because the main views are not perpendicular to the facades, but are diagonally towards the building. So the architect made a zigzag facade so that the windows are oriented in the right way for having a view on Shenzhen Bay and to have a view on the park on the other side. So it was the urban context that let the architect design this shape, and the rest is a story that I'm going to explain you. So it started with a zigzag facade where half of the facade is glass, half of the facade is stone. So this zigzag facade, it's an architectural starting point. There was no discussion. It was not for sustainability. It was for vision, for architectural and integration with the landscape. So no discussion about that. But already, when you have a zigzag facade, you know that you have 40% more facade budget because you have 40% more surface. So we knew from the beginning that it will be a facade that will be a little expensive just because you have more facade than usual. When you make a high-rise building in China, you will use unitized systems. And when you have unitized systems, you have a gap between the two panels. The gap between two panels is not a problem, but when it is on the corner, then it makes, for an architect, it weakens the corner. The corner is not a strong element in architecture. It becomes a gap, and that is kind of thing that we didn't like. So we started trying to make this corner perfect. And instead of having units that are, this is one unit, we started having V-shaped units in such a way that this corner really looked nice. And by the way, you will see the result is not so bad for that. The next step, we had to integrate operable windows. There was a discussion at that time about the 10% operable windows. You are all aware of that. You also know that in the code there is some ambiguity about how to calculate that surface. On one project we do it one way, on the other project we do it another way. Here the client asked us to consider 10% opening for the whole surface, even if it is glass or not glass, which is an extremely conservative attitude. But we were obliged to insert operable windows everywhere. So when we had to do that, to not make it too visible, we decided to not put it on the glass area, because when you have a window in a curtain wall with glass, you have the frame, you have the handle, you have all those things. You are losing transparency. So we said we will put the window in the opaque part. But when we start doing it here, of course we need perforation, a perforated metal here. to not see the open or closed position of the window, but the area of stone, this was stone, and it's still stone, this area became a little too minority. It was too small, and we are losing the effect of two surfaces. So we decided to put the window really in the corner of the unit in such a way that we still have a big stone and we have a big glass. In fact, the window remains a kind of minor element on the facade. It is not interrupting the architectural concept that much. By doing so, we had the feeling that the zigzag facade is something that you see on many buildings in the 70s and the 80s. It is maybe a little kind of aggressive, maybe even. I don't want to talk about feng shui because that is not my specialty, but we thought that if we want this to be linked, if we could link these two surfaces, it would even give some modern touch to this shape, which could have been a very old-dated, old-fashioned curtain wall system. So by doing this, it was even quite appropriate because we could really take benefit of the maximum opening for the ventilation. And last but not least, we could integrate artificial light in this part here, so that the light is not fixed on the facade, but integrated in the facade, and it is not direct light to the outside, it is indirect light. The light here is just putting light on the stone, and that is a quite subtle effect we felt. When you make special architecture details like this, I mentioned at the beginning, you must communicate with your client, because when you do something special, if the client is not understanding all the consequences of the special, then you should not do it. So we highlighted that when you have the window in the corner, of course, the partition wall can only fix to the facade in this area. So this is possible, but this is not recommended, this is not recommended. So there are some information that we had to pass to the developer to be sure that he agrees with it. Otherwise, he could just reject the idea, and if he did not agree, we would have done something else. This is kind of complex image to see, but we compared different solutions about orientation and light transmission. In fact, when you have a zigzag facade where only 50% is glass, it is already much less glass than all the glass facades that you see around the high-rise buildings here in Shenzhen. You are used here to have a lot of 100% glass curtain walls, and this project started with 50. And because of the operable part, the glass area was even shorter. It was around 30%. So how can you be sure that with 30% you have enough natural light coming in? I mean, the concept architecturally can be nice, but if the comfort inside is not according to the expectation of the people, then you miss your point. So our design considered two aspects. One is to see, is there enough daylight globally in the area? And this is a calculation by watt, but it's the same. Is there enough light coming in? And we managed to say that if the glass is not too reflective and has a high light transmissioncy of 70%, then it is okay. If the glass light transmission is less than 70%, it will probably be a little too dark on the inside, according to standards for sustainability. So we managed to convince the client with this. He was happy. And another point was to see when the people are inside the office and you have one part that is opaque, one part that is glass, what about the view to the outside? Do we still have some interesting view to the outside? Do we have the feeling that we have a view to the outside? So we have a small program on Grasshopper to calculate in different areas how much view we have all around, from all around different locations. So also this showed that in fact, there were no places where you have no feeling of being only with opaque wall. The view to the outside was still okay. So that means that the architectural concept was quite okay. It was a way to validate the architectural concept. One thing surprising, or maybe not surprising, when you have a high-rise building, normally you care from what you see from far away. And we like the idea that when you see a building from far away, there is a story. You can read something, you can identify the building from far away. And when you get closer to the building, you will see different things. There will be a different story. And when you get even closer to the building, it's again a different story. That means every time you discover something new, it is not a photo you zoom in and at some moment you see nothing. At every time, at every distance, there is something interesting happening. And because the facade is zigzag, when you are in this room and you look outside, you can see this facade exactly near you. It's one of the a normal building. You never see your own facade. You see the facade of the neighbor. In this building, you see your own facade. So that facade must be nice looking. So the whole way to design this facade suddenly had also to integrate a component like of interior architecture. It was when you are sitting in your office, it's part of your decoration. So this is, I will go very quickly, this is the way how we draw. You remember, I mentioned earlier, we always make color drawings to make the things easy to understand. We are architects, we are mainly architects, or let's say mixed architecture and engineers, but our drawings, we have a way of drawing that allows everybody to understand it. When we discuss with the client, he understands it, he understands the global picture, and we need to make those drawings because when you need to convince your client, you must be sure that he understands well what you are drawing. Especially my Chinese is not so good. Actually, my Chinese is very bad. I don't speak Chinese at all, let's say it that way. So I must convince with drawings. And of course, we have project managers that speak Chinese, that's fine. But still, I feel that drawing is a good way to communicate. So these are the details, and all the small details that I mentioned about the corner, about the perforated element here. This is the fixed part, but maybe a next one. This is the operable part. Here you have the operable window. The light is here. The perforation has a special pattern. You cannot see it here, but in this part, the perforation is higher so that the light can go out. In this area, the perforation is smaller because you just don't need the light to go out. It's just the air. So all those ways of drawing, the content is the same as the construction drawings made by the contractor that I will show you later, but I feel they are just easier to understand. And when they are easier to understand, you can also, in an easier way, see the relation with the interior partitions, with the ground, with the ceiling. You understand what we are talking about. These are the contractor's drawings. We were lucky on this project to work with Facade, which is probably one of the really good curtain wall contractors here in Shenzhen. It is more or less following the same thing that we did, except that these drawings are a little more difficult to understand. Of course, they have a little more information about construction, but the difference is minor. And the interesting thing on this project, because the client and the architect fully supported the design, the contractor just also fully supported the design. I mentioned to you, when you do something here in China, I always feel there is some little innovation. Always test. I mean, on all the projects we do performance mock-up, we test everything. I think it is really part of the thing that must become natural. Here you see the light during the night. That was the visual mock-up. And this is the project finished. I invite you to see it. It's a really nice building. I was there this morning with my team. It is really nice. And actually, this is the photo I like best. Of course, this is a view from a bird, and from inside you don't see it. But there is a kind of, first there is a quality of the stone that is really nice. The details are well done. It's a project, it's a kind of project that we like. And although our input is maybe minor, because at the end, you don't see it, it's not something spectacular, you will not be, it's not, wow, what amazing. No, it is just a simple building, well designed, well built, and I think that is already a huge quality that we can, with which one we can convince clients to go further. Okay, that's what I want to say about.